everyone, welcome to the When Harry Met Onnie podcast, episode number 6. My name is Emily. I am coming at you from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and I enjoy knitting and crocheting, and that is primarily what this podcast is about. So if you've happened to stumble upon my little corner of the internet for the first time, welcome. Thanks for joining. And if you are a return viewer, thank you for continuing to watch my episodes. This is the 6th episode. I took a brief hiatus, well, brief by several months. I started recording this year back in late June. So I've managed to squeeze out 6 episodes so far this year, and hopefully next year we'll bring more. But I wanted to hop in and kind of show you what I've been working on before the new year. And I have some more time now to record than, when things are crazy busy at work. So, so here we are. And what else? You can follow me on Instagram. My username is When Harry Met Onnie. That's ONNIE. Harry and Onyx are my 2 cats. And hence the name When Harry Met Onnie. We got Harry first and then Onyx came after. And my Ravelry username is Mmeister. That's EMMEISTER. So, okay, let's just jump right into it. So I usually do, for my first segment, a segment called From the Vault. So sometimes I can combine that with a finished object if it happens to be an item that had gone into hibernation. Even though it was complete, it wasn't 100% complete. So that's the first one that I have to share with you today. This is the Droplet Slouch Hat. This is a pattern by Yarn Has My Heart. I actually test knit this for her back in August. This was my first color work project. So I'll flash you the floats. Here's some floats. Actually looks pretty nice. I don't think I had to catch anything because they were pretty close together. There are the floats. And the reason that this was languishing so long and not technically finished was because I really wanted to add a pom-pom. So I have added a pom-pom. I got these on Amazon as in like a 10-pack. They're like a faux fur pom-pom. And I also wanted to block it. So the pattern originally called for a US size 8. And I kept trying to get gauge with an 8 and then with, I think, a 9. And finally, I bought 10 needles and I was like, okay, if I can't get gauge with this, I'm the best test knitter, obviously. But I'm like, okay, if I can't get gauge with this, then forget it. Like, I'm not, like, it was a worsted weight yarn. The yarn is Bluesky fibers in the Woolstok worsted. And this kind of like blue teal is Midnight. And the gray is called Gray Harbor. So all things considered, once I blocked it, it turned out to be a size that I feel comfortable wearing. It is a more tight-fitted hat. I think the designer has like a picture of it being more slouchy, but mine is definitely more fitted. But I think it turned out nice. I mean, this motif kind of stretches when you wear it, but it's very cozy on my head. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about this. Okay, we have finished object. The next finished object that I have, I'm actually going to drop a video in because I made this, I started this hat after my last podcast, but I had to mail it out earlier this week. So I made a quick video when I finished the hat and before it was mailed out talking about it. So I'll insert that here. Hey everyone, this is Emily from the past. I just wanted to insert a little video about my Fornicating deer hat that by the time I record the next podcast will have already been shipped off to its intended recipient. I made this hat in about a week. Just a little bit of background. My husband is participating in a Secret Santa with some of his friends, and he pulled our mutual friend, who is also a groomsman in our wedding, Tom. Tom lives in Minnesota, and he hunts. So I had my eye on this Fornicating deer chart for a while. It's a very, very popular pattern on Ravelry by Rutten that has a lot of projects associated with it. People take the chart and use it on hats, mittens, I've seen sweaters. But anyway, I thought, as he was preparing his Secret Santa gift, I thought that Tom would be the perfect person to receive a Fornicating deer hat, considering he spends many a weekend in Minnesota hunting and up at his family shack. So put together this hat. The yarn that I used, it was very budget friendly. I stopped at Hobby Lobby. I was actually looking for like a hunter's orange color with brown after looking at some of the project pages on Ravelry associated with this chart. So I ended up buying from Hobby Lobby, orange and dark brown yarn bee mini makers. So I got 3 of the mini makers in orange and 2 of the mini makers in dark brown, and those are 100% acrylic. I used a size 8 hook, or sorry, I used a size 8 needle. In hindsight, I think it was probably a little bit too big. I probably should have used a 7, but it seems to fit. It's a little bit oversized. It definitely has like a pretty significant length to it, but it should be good and keep them warm. But anyway, those skeins have 65 yards in them, and I had this much left of the orange, and I have this much left of the brown. So 2 skeins of brown and 3 skeins of orange. I use the double brim technique that I learned from my red hook beanie. And I followed the project page very, very closely of someone who made a Huntin Hat in the same colors. She did the brim a little bit differently, but I followed her notes for essentially the rest of the hat. So thank you so much to Oh So Sweet 10. I really, really relied on your notes, and I really liked how your hat came out, so I made sure that mine looked similar. So let's give this a quick spin. So the Fornicating deer chart has this motif with the 2 trees and the deer 3 times. So you can see all around that it's just all deers and trees, which is pretty cool. I made a pom-pom. I used that same video that I used for my red hook beanie to make it out of the yarn that I had used in the project. And I think I'm going to pop this in the dryer again. So I had blocked it, and it kind of stretched out a little bit, which was not the intended effect. I actually was trying to shrink it, but I guess with 100% acrylic, it's kind of hard to do that because it is like a superwash type yarn. So, which is good in some ways, but holds up in a dryer. But when I dried it, it kind of took the orange fibers and overlaid them over the brown. I don't know if you can see that, but it has the effect that it is a different color than the pom-pom. This looks a little darker to me, or like a little bit more muted than this brown. So I might pop it back into the dryer, but we're trying to get this sent out tomorrow so that he gets his Secret Santa gift in time. Oh, and then the only other thing that I wanted to maybe talk about was I had a little bit of difficulty incorporating the stripes at the bottom. I looked up a couple techniques on how to do like jogless stripes, which is definitely much easier to do when you're crocheting, to create jogless stripes on like crochet stuffed animals and things like that. I could not get it really. And I think the method that I ended up choosing, which was helix knitting, really is supposed to work with multiple rounds. Like here I only used the stripes for like 4 rounds, and then I started the color work. But it kind of messed up the bottom of the tree a little bit, and you know, these aren't jogless to me, but you can't really tell. You know, I just pointed it out to you, but all things considered, I think it came out really well. I'm really happy with it. It took less than a week to make, and blocked it, and loosened up the stitches pretty nicely. I'm not very experienced with color work, so, you know, any help I can get in the aftermath and in washing the item and drying it is definitely a plus. The reason that I couldn't post about this on Instagram, I really wanted to, was because Tom follows my my knitting account, When Harry Met Onnie, on Instagram. So I couldn't post about it because he probably would have seen it, and he might not necessarily have thought it was for him, but I wanted it to be a surprise. So after he receives it, I'm going to put a finished object picture on Instagram. All right, so that's my Fornicating deer hat. So I will shoot you back over to the regularly scheduled podcast. See ya. I hope you enjoyed learning more about my Fornicating deer hat. I really hope that Tom likes it. And as soon as he opens it and I receive word that he has gotten it and it won't be a spoiler anymore, I will post my finished object pictures of it on Instagram and Ravelry. I could probably post it on Ravelry right now, but might as well just do it all in one go. So that's all I have for finished objects. I'm going to show you my 2 works in progress. I have some other whips that I've shown in previous episodes. Unfortunately, I haven't been working on them, so I will spare you the show and tell. The first whip that I do have is my pointed fur shawl, and that is in this project bag, which I've shown before, but I really love. It's by NSP Designs, and it's her large size project bag. And I'm really hoping to free this up for a couple sweater projects that I have in the near future, which I will talk about at the end of the episode. So this week, I am not in the middle of the row, and I made sure I wasn't in the middle of the row. I said to my husband, I said, you know, I think I'm going to podcast today. And he was like, go do it right now. And I was like, I'm in the middle of this row on my shawl, so I had to finish that. So he was like, all right. But I finished the row. It's really big. So it's a triangle shawl. Oop, there go my notes. I don't even know if I can fit it in here, the whole thing. Let's show you this way. This is the right side because I put that stitch marker in the front. But yeah, so I guess this is kind of it will be upside down because the point will be at my back. But I've thought about it, and I keep bringing it into my knitting group, and they're like, aren't you gonna bind it off? And I don't know. I mean, this garter section, it calls for like 60, like it's crazy. It's supposed to be a border, but like it's pretty long. There's a little fluff on there. And my hair's everywhere. But I even extended this pattern portion farther than what it called for. So I figured I'd make it the same length as what the pattern says, but just have less of the garter border. But it looks really long. And I keep like bringing it into the bathroom and like trying it on. Not when I'm using the bathroom, just because our mirror is in there, just to clarify. But you know, be able to wear it like this. It's pretty long down the back. Also, my workplace is usually freezing, although they just said that they bumped up the temperature by 3 degrees. I'm not sure I believe that. But, yeah, so I can wear it like this. But I'm one of those people that also likes to wear my shawls as almost like scarves. So I'm wondering if, you know, I'll be able to do it like this. Probably like that. We'll figure it out. It looks kind of silly right now, but I don't know. Probably Google, you know, different ways to wear a shawl, but I think that looks nice. So lots of versatility But the pattern has 3 different sizes that you can knit. And the one is like a neckerchief, and the other is a shawl, and the third one is like a wrap almost. So those are the 3 different lengths you can do, and that's what it'll look like. It's a pattern by Versaci, I don't know, it's not Versace, but I think it's Versaci Knits. And the yarn that I'm using is Berocco Vintage DK, and I am using, I can't remember what the color is. Actually, let's see. Yeah, I don't remember what the color is, but it's like this like blue jean heathered kind of color, which I like. And it is 52% acrylic, 40% wool, 8% nylon. So if I follow the pattern, I have about 13 rows left, which isn't that much. It's probably like, oh, let's see, it's probably like this much. So I think I'm just going to do it to pattern. There's no reason why I couldn't bind it off, but I have so much of it left. And I don't know, I could stop and just have more yarn to work with for another project. But, you know, I bought this yarn not intending to use it for anything else. And I'm not really sure what to do with like a small quantity of DK weight yarn. But yeah, there's a close-up of it. I really like the heathered look. So that is my pointed fur shawl. So someone was interested in my pointed fur shawl as I was putting it away. So I got Onnie here to say hello. Say hi. He's a good boy. You a good boy? You a good boy? He's a good boy. So my next work in progress, I'm not sure how this is going to go with the cat on my lap, because once I put him down, he decided to stay and I guess check things out. But my next work in progress is the Wintertime warmer blanket for my former roommate. I put just a few rows on here, although I think I mentioned last week that you basically knit like it's like, okay, he's nesting. But he also sits on this blanket all the time, so he probably just thinks it's his and is like, I don't understand why you're moving that blanket, because I want to sit on it. But anyway, I put a couple more rows on it. I still have quite a bit to do, and it takes a while. So you double crochet basically all up the blanket, and then you add these posts, and I think it's treble crochet. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's whatever these are. And last week I mistakenly told you that there were 6 colors in this blanket. There are not 6 colors. There are actually more. I believe there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 post colors. I use yellow twice, and then the base color is navy. It's all Red Heart Super Saver 100% acrylic, and I did find the designer's name. It is Christine Grazioso-Moody, and this pattern appeared in the Big Book of Crochet Afghans. As I mentioned last week, I still cannot find that book. So I've just been, continuing on, and I'll bind it off some way. But I'm sure it's around somewhere. But, hi buddy. But if it's not, yeah, I'll probably just end up biting the bullet and buying it again, because I would like to crochet some other Afghans. That's like on my to-do list. So my next segment is Prime Time, where I show you things that I've bought, things that I've gotten in the mail, impulsive yarn purchases at local yarn shops. But today, as I mentioned in my last episode, I'm going to do a special Colorado edition of the Prime Time segment. So in case this is your first time joining, I recently got married, and my husband and I got married out in Estes Park, Colorado, and we were able to honeymoon there after. So I hit up some of the local yarn shops in the Denver area and also in Boulder. So I thought I would take the opportunity to share with you what I got while I was on my honeymoon. So the first shop that I went to was called Lamb Shop, and it was in Denver, Colorado, and that is where I purchased the Sirdar, bye Annie. Okay, that was getting really difficult, I just have to be honest. Anyway, okay, so that is where I purchased the Sirdar Alpine in 0403 Brindle. That's the yarn that I knit my mom's snood in. I was wearing it last week briefly, and it's all gone, which is great because I got to use up the yarn that I have in my stash. The second place that we went to was actually not a yarn store. It was called Alpaca Connection. It was on Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado. And I went there on a whim because I saw it was called Alpaca Connection, and by looking in the storefront window, I could tell that they were selling things that were made from alpaca fleece. Is that what you call it? I guess. I don't know. Just things that were made from alpaca. So I went in and I asked if they had any yarn. And so she directed me toward the back, and they had yarn by one company called Whisper Mountain Ranch. And the woman who was there working the register said that they actually don't have a farm anymore. They are done, you know, making yarn and supplying Alpaca Connection. So they're really just trying to sell what's left. So I was sad that they're no longer in business, but I picked up 2 skeins anyway. So here was their little card. And this is the first one I got. It just feels so soft. I'm not really sure what I'm going to make with this yet. It's almost like a worsted weight or like a DK weight, but I'll have to do a little bit of investigating. But anyway, this is 100% alpaca. There's 200 yards and it's 2-ply. So that's all I really know about it. There's 5 ounces here, so it's heavier. And compare it with this one I got, which is also 2-ply, but it is, it's definitely 2 different colors, or 2 different alpaca woven together, which I really love that look. I've been liking that a lot recently. So this is the same thing, 100% alpaca. This is 3 3/8 ounces. So this is a lighter weight. So I'm thinking this is like more of like a sport weight. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll have to find something cool to do with those. And in preparing for this episode and looking up Whisper Mountain Ranch to see like what the internet had to say about them, I learned that although they are no longer in business, their ranch is currently up for sale for $9 million. And with the $9 million, you get 150 acres of land, and you get a luxury home with 5 bedrooms and 7 baths. So I turned to my husband and I said, we should really play the lottery so that I can buy this, this Whisper Mountain Ranch and just like live among alpacas in Colorado, because that is the literal dream. So anyway, they also seem to have alpacas for sale. So if you got, you know, an extra $2,000 in your pocket and you want to own a couple alpacas, check them out. But that was pretty cool that, you know, that they still were selling the yarn, and it's really soft. It's a shame that they're no longer in business. I hope that everything's okay. I don't really know anything other than that, but yeah, these will be put to good use. Still not sure what I'll make with them. I find it hard to kind of, you know, go in and know. I don't know. I'm still so new that I don't know like how much something will make. Like, I'm sure I can make hats out of these. That's no problem. But like, how can I optimize the quantity if I want to do more than one project out of them? Like, could I do a hat and some mitts? If I pick the right project, could I do like a cowl and something else? So yeah, I'm still kind of trying to learn that and make wise purchasing decisions, but this was souvenir yarn and very special, so I didn't really have a problem picking up some of this yarn from the shop in Boulder. The last place we went while we were in Boulder was a shop called Shuttles, Spindles, and Skeins, and I bought this tote bag. It has a blue handle. I've been using it a lot. I have my Colorado haul in here right now. And yeah, just a regular canvas tote bag. This was in a part of Boulder that was like, that had a beautiful mountain view, so we took some pictures of me and Logan standing like with the mountains in the background. It was absolutely breathtaking. And I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast episode, might have been last week. They had a dog there, or maybe it was on my Instagram post. They had a dog there who was a rescue, and she had 3 legs and was like the sweetest dog, and they just had her in this like pen almost, and she just, all she wanted to do was to be pet. So that was really sweet. So my husband was entertained while I was, you know, going around looking at everything. They had a lot of like spinning equipment, which I just wasn't really interested in. And I asked the owner if she could direct me toward any like local yarn that they had. And they actually didn't have a huge selection of things that was, or like locally dyed yarn, or like Colorado yarn. That's really what I was looking for. But I did pick up this skein of sock yarn. Let me see. It is by, I want to get the name right. Okay. It is by Hummingbird Moon. I think she has a Facebook page. Her Etsy page was down, so I'm not sure what that means. But this is called Over the Moon Sock Yarn. It is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. You get 420 yards in this thing. So that is pretty good. And the color is Spellbound. So I will share with you in just a little bit what I think my plans are with this yarn. But yeah, I'm very excited. I was looking on Ravelry and I saw somebody with this exact color say that there was an issue with color pooling. So I think my plan for this yarn might avoid that because I'm going to hold it double in a project. But you can kind of tell that with it being wound up, that, you know, like the darker colors are on the outside and there's more light. You know, the dye didn't seem to penetrate some of the center yarn as much. But we'll see. I mean, again, I needed to have some Colorado souvenir yarn, so I bought this. And that is it for my Colorado yarn haul. I made it out relatively unscathed in terms of my wallet, but, you know, we had just spent some money on our wedding, so I don't think I was as inspired to just go all out. And also, before we left, my suitcase already was almost 50 pound, like at the 50-pound limit, and we had to do some luggage reshuffling. So I didn't really, you know, want to bring a whole bunch of stuff back with us. But yeah, so that's my Colorado prime time. So because I am a little light on the actual knitting content this week in terms of what I am working on, I thought it might be a good opportunity to go through what I have chosen for my Make 9 challenge. So as I'm sure most of you know who are watching, the Make 9 challenge is just a hashtag that is going around on Instagram. I think there actually was a sewing or a sewist who started the hashtag with reference to sewing projects that she would make in 2019. But the idea is that you choose 9 projects that you want to make in 2019. And I can't promise that I'm going to make all of these. I think it's just a good way to check in with yourself and think about what yarn you have, what has really been catching your eye in terms of projects and patterns that came out in the previous year. So when I came up with the 9 projects that I want to knit, and they're all knitting, none of them are sewing or crocheting, but that's just how I'm feeling going into 2019. But I really tried to keep in mind patterns that I had already purchased and yarn that I already have. I mean, this hobby can get really expensive, and I have so much that I have that I can use, that I would love to use it and focus this upcoming year on using things or buying yarn and knowing what I'm going to make with it. I know that's really hard, and like sometimes you have to buy, or you want to buy yarn because it speaks to you, it calls your name, it says please take me home, but for me, it can get really expensive. So with that in mind, I'm going to go through my the 9 projects that I have planned for 2019, and I will pop a picture of the pattern. I gotta figure out how to do that, like while I'm still talking, and put the picture there. And also, if I have the yarn, I'll show you what yarn I'm planning to make with it. So the first project that I'm going to make is called the Huntin Hat, and it is a pattern by Jill Zielinski. It's a colorwork hat pattern. And it calls for DK weight yarn. The pattern was $7. I already purchased it, and it calls for 4 colors. So earlier this year, I impulsively made a purchase of the Christy Glass Asylum Fibers collaboration for the Unicorn Along shawl that a bunch of people made and then wore to Rhinebeck. I neither knit the shawl nor went to Rhinebeck, so now I have all of this yarn that I think would be a really great Huntin hat based on what I've seen. So here we go. This will be my Huntin hat, and I think I'll have plenty of leftover to do something else really fun with this yarn. But it has glitter all in it, which is kind of cool. But the pattern is very fun. It has a lot of like geometric features. I really like this one because it has the colors. It has these colors in it. So I have to pick a base color. I'm thinking of this one. I think this will be a good base color. But yeah, so that's what I have planned, and these are all DK weight. I don't know. I don't know where the tag is. I don't know. It's probably merino something. But I'll try to find the tag, and then I'll put it in the information below. So yes, this will be my Huntin hat. In keeping with the hat theme, the second project on my Make 9 2019 challenge is the Cardamom Coffee Hat by Caitlin Hunter. So this is a very popular pattern that's been floating around. I've seen a lot of people make it. I had purchased it several months ago. It was $5, and I even went and picked out the yarn. I can't remember where I got it. I can't remember what the store was called, but it was somewhere out in like Lancaster or maybe Ephrata. I'll try to see if I can figure out which one it was out there. It wasn't Flying Fibers. It was another one. I'll put the name of the shop. But I picked out 3 different yarns by Louette. Louette Gems, 100% merino wool. It's actually super fine fingering. So it's fingering, but I'm wondering if it's light fingering as opposed to fingering. So I'm not sure. I don't know if this will actually work, but it calls for 3 colors, and the 3 I chose are, this is burgundy, and this one is straw, and this one is cream. So I'll have to look at the pattern again to see if this will actually work. But that was my plan when I bought this yarn. I was looking for yarn for the Cardamom Coffee Hat, and I think these will work so long as the weight is right. Or maybe I'll hold it double. I don't know. It calls for fingering weight, but I'm just kind of worried now looking at it again that it says it's super fine, but I don't know if that's like just a general indication for fingering weight yarn or if it's a light fingering. So now that I've said fingering about 14 times during this podcast, let's talk about more fingering. The next project on my Make 9 2019 challenge are the Simple House Slippers by Simone A. This is a free Ravelry pattern. I heard about this pattern watching the Sticks Plus Twine podcast. Ethan was knitting up a pair of these. It might have been one of his earlier episodes, but I would really love to make those. If they're quick enough, I might make them for gift knits, but they call for DK weight yarn. However, I think I'm going to hold double the yarn that I bought, the Hummingbird Moon yarn that I bought from Shuttles, Spindles, and Skeins. So I think that'll work. I've seen several other people do it. It might have been they held it double if it were going to be worsted weight. But, you know, I'll check my gauge and see how it's coming along. But I think that would solve this color pooling problem that some people mentioned on Ravelry. But anyway, yeah, so my plan is to make the Simple House slippers out of this Spellbound colorway. And I think it'll be really nice and really cozy, and they'll be my Boulder, Colorado slippers. The next project on my Make 9 2019 list is the Star Shower Shawl by Hilary Smith Callis. And again, it calls for fingering weight yarn. But I bought a skein of Woolen Vine yarns in her Nouveau base, which is 100% superwash merino, 400 yards, 100 grams, 1-ply fingering, and this is the Edinburgh colorway. So I thought it would look really nice in that shawl pattern, and we'll see. It seems like it's like a lacy shawl. Lace is not my favorite to work with, but it'll be a challenge. But I think it would be the perfect use of this skein of yarn. So that's my plan for this yarn, the Star Shower Shawl. Okay, the next project I have chosen for my Make 9 challenge, actually I don't have yarn for, and I don't have the pattern yet, and I'll tell you why. So I am a big fan of Stephen West's designs. A lot of them look very complicated for my level of knitting, but I really like his aesthetic. I like what he's doing in the knitting community, and I really want to knit a Stephen West pattern. So I was looking on Ravelry through his designs, and I chose Cafe Knitting. It is a shawl. It is a 3-color fade, and unfortunately it's not available yet unless you are in like his 2018 yarn club. So it will be released in April 2019. So I do not have yarn for this. It is a sport weight yarn. The fade is very subtle, so I have to pick yarn that like really flows well one into the next. He has a great fade in his. I can't remember. I think it's La Bien Amie that he uses for his sample. But that's really one of the only projects on my Make 9 2019 list that I would have to buy yarn for. That's the plan. Obviously, yarn will be purchased in 2019. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to purchase yarn, but that's the one where I will allow myself to purchase the sport weight yarn in the fade that I choose to make that shawl. So I think knitting 4 sweaters in 2019 is going to be a little ambitious, but I have the yarn for all of these. So even if I have 2 going at once, or even if I have one that I'm working on in the summer for November, December of 2019, I do think it's possible. But I really want to knit all of these, and some of them I've talked about on the podcast before. So the first one is the Manzanilla by Joji Locatelli. I purchased it already, and I'm going to use this Painted Spring Farm 100% alpaca. Sorry, it's not 100% alpaca. It's 75% alpaca, 25% merino. It is so soft. There's 200 yards per skein, so I got 6 of them, and I don't know. I bought this at Knitter's Day Out, and I really wanted to buy a sweaters quantity because it's so soft. And the reason I picked the Manzanilla was because I've heard that alpaca is like very drapey, so that one looked like it doesn't have to stand up on its own. And there's like a design element on the sleeve, but I think it'll be really nice in this like winter white color. So yeah, I have the yarn for this and I have the pattern. Number 7 is The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. So I've seen a lot of people make these. It seems like a fairly simple construction, but a gorgeous garment. I already purchased the pattern. It was $7 on Ravelry. And I have 2 of these gigantic yarn babies. So I bought these from Kristen of Wool and Vine. She was doing a D-stash. And I think she had them for sale for like maybe like $100 for both of them. But it is Spirit Trail Fiberworks, Zalty, 100% Targhee wool, and you get 600 yards per yarn baby. And the color I have is Antique Rose. This was dyed, it looks like it was dyed September 16th, 2018. I don't know if that's right. Oh, I think it might be September 18th, 2016. That sounds more correct considering I bought it. I think I bought it before September of 2018. I definitely did. So yeah, so I have 2 of these. It was really funny because I watched the most recent episode of the Notorious podcast. The Carrie and Kelly came back, which I was very excited about. And Kelly bought 2 of these at Rhinebeck this year. And then she said that she was planning to make a weekender. So I think it's the perfect it's a perfect pattern when you have 1,200 yards of this yarn to make. So we can be weekender twins. That's the story behind this yarn. My plans for it are to be a weekender by Andrea Mowry. Number 8, I'm going to make the Flax Light by Tin Can Knits. And I am going to make it out of this wonderful Hunter's Orange. How cool is that? I think it's pretty awesome. The story behind this yarn. So before I was making Tom's hat out of my Hobby Lobby acrylic, I had put some feelers out on Instagram to see if anyone knew of any yarn that was this Hunter's Orange that I was looking for. So Bethany, her Instagram is Creaky Pines. She messaged me and said, I think the Woolen Homestead sells a Hunter's Orange. So I messaged them and I asked them if they still have any lying, like if they had any lying around that they would want to sell. And I really only need a skein of it. But Tiffany got back to me and said, I'm sure we could have that in the shop in a few weeks. I was like, oh, okay. Orange is also my favorite color. So when I was little, I told my great aunt and I were talking about kid stuff, and she said, what's your favorite color, Emily? And I said, I really love orange. And she said, that isn't a good color for a favorite color. So I was basically orange shamed, but I really love orange. So when Tiffany got back to me and said that or they would have it in the next shop, they would have it in a future shop update. She followed up again and said, hey, we're going to have this yarn available. So I snagged 3 skeins of it. I had already made Tom's hat, but I just thought, I think it's meant to be for me to have this yarn if they kind of, they basically went out of their way to have it back in the shop. And so I was very excited to pick up all of this. And it is their sturdy sock base. It is fingering weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. You get 438 yards for ply and 100 grams per skein. So 1,200, actually it's 1,300 yards is plenty to make a flax light, and I think it'll be great. I've never knit a sweater before, so perhaps this will be like my first or second one just to get the basic construction down. But yeah, very excited about this. Number 9, last but not least, I will be knitting the Notorious RBG by Park Williams. I talked about this in my previous episode because I had just purchased the yarn for it, but I will be using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. This is their 100% Peruvian Highland wool worsted weight yarn. I got this 10 skeins of it for 20 bucks, which I was extremely happy about. This is the coal colorway, and I had ordered like an ivory color, but I wasn't happy with it. So I went back and got like a pure white. So I got white, came in the mail. So this will be for the, what's supposed to look like her collar on the yoke. So I think this might be my first cast on for 2019. Right. I think that's it for this week. So those are my 9 items that I want to make in 2019. I think I'll post an Instagram post that has them in the square so that you can see the thumbnails of the patterns, and if you're so interested, check them out yourself. But yeah, it is a few days before Christmas, so if you celebrate Christmas, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. I am not sure that I will podcast again during this year, so if I do not, have a Happy New Year, and I will see you in 2019, or next time, just not sure. We'll keep it at next time. All right, bye.